Right. So I think we're going. Jeff, I think it's happening. Hey CLF, how you guys doing? Thursday lunchtime, just breaking into your day to chat with you a little bit. And I've got a special guest, Pastor Jeff Oakes. Some of you may recognize him. He is an overseer for our church. What title would you like? Archbishop?
How about friend?
Friend. Jeff and I go back a long time. I mean, you knew me as a small child. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Long time. So you knew me as a child. You were also a kind of a college professor for me, right? You taught one of my classes.
Yeah, that's a stretch, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but it's good. It's good. So, Jeff, we were chatting a little bit, because you are, well, I really want to get your perspective, right? This world is really crazy right now. Things are quite different. And, but you're a man of wisdom, whether you would accept that as a title or not. You're a man, which, God speaks prophetically through you, and so I think it's important for a body to hear maybe some things that you're seeing, and you are a world traveler, and so that has been shut down a bit. You were talking about that. Well, where all were you planning on? Where would you have been during all this right now?
Well, first of all, Josh, let me say it's good to be on the Zoom call with you, and also the church at CLF. It's great for whoever's tuning in right now. But I really love you guys and appreciate your faithfulness to Jesus in these difficult days. And so I think your testimony has been a real beacon of hope to your community and beyond your community, because the stuff that you all produce is really excellent, has a spirit of excellence about it, and I think it's encouraging to people. So God bless you. So it's a real honor to be on with you, Josh. It's really funny you asked that question, because I was actually on the day that everything really began to shut down. I was on my way. Within an hour, I would have been on my way to the airport to go to Buenos Aires, and we get a phone call that says, hey, everything shut down. They've shut down the meetings in Argentina. Do not come. If you come, wow, we won't have anything. And then consequently, the return trip was actually scheduled the day that the United States was stopping all flights from Argentina. And one of my friends who happened to be in Argentina at the time got the last flight out of Buenos Aires. Otherwise, wow, it would have been a real problem to do that. So I was supposed to be doing some pastor training and working with my friend Steve, who was doing some evangelistic meetings outside Buenos Aires. And then I had a whole team that was going to Zamora, Mexico. We were doing a pastor's conference, and of course that got canceled. And then I was supposed to be traveling some inside the United States, and that all got canceled. And then this next week I was supposed to be headed to Mongolia, and so of course that's been canceled. So everything has kind of been put on hold, and so we're just kind of waiting to see. It's an interesting time in which we live, for sure.
Yeah. So, and I joke about you being a world traveler, and you really were traveling the world, but you have a global perspective. God's used you in different locales all over the world. And I think, sometimes it's easy to just get focused in on kind of what's going on in my home, in my city. Mm-hmm. And so I think a big question right now is, what's something that you see God doing throughout the whole world right now? Because we are kind of the whole world is going through this at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one that I can say that, at least, and I've been a student of history my whole life, but I'm not saying that there's never been a pandemic before, but I can say that as far as what I have read in world history, there has never been the response to a situation like we're experiencing, where the actions of 6 continents have been the same. That's even in a world war, we've not had the same thing required of literally the inhabitants of 6 continents while that's going on. And basically it's been stay-at-home orders, like, hey, don't leave your house, it's safer at home, stay at home, whatever. And we use the term, social distancing or quarantining now. I mean, the issue has been really something that I think you have to look at and go, wow, this is really a significant time, because this has never happened. Maybe as far back as the flood of Noah, have we had something that's happened worldwide like the response has been in these days. So I think that you don't have to be a real prophet to get, wait a minute, this is a sign. Something like this that's never happened before is pretty significant.
So that's a great point. I mean, you're right. There is kind of historical, there's big things that have happened, but this is still unique. This is still something. Yeah. So as a sign, what do you think God wants believers to understand right now? Like, what is he trying to say?
I was just in a meeting and we were talking about this very thing. We're asking ourselves, what's the Holy Spirit saying? What is it he's trying to get across to us? And I think this is the things that I've talked about to people in Europe, to people in Asia, to people in Africa, to people in South America. And I haven't talked to anybody in Australia, but I have talked to some people in Southwest, in the South Pacific, but and then also North America. And we all have really kind of used different terms and different metaphors, but it's this idea of a reset, that there's something that God's been really trying to get our attention through this. Now, I know that when the Lord's moving, the enemy is moving as well. And so I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about the causal agents here, but what I am saying is that in the midst of it, God is actually saying, I believe, to the church, it's time to reset. It's time to return to the things that really matter in life and evaluate that which is really a necessity and that which is maybe superfluous, and really beginning to evaluate what really matters in life, in our faith, in our practice, and also what really matters in our community.
Wow, that's so good. That word reset has been something that we've even preached, right? In kind of the season. I totally agree with that. Like, this is a time to reset. And so, I mean, you kind of get into it there, but would you say that there's anything that you would really hope, a lot of those who are watching right now, and those who will watch this later, are going to be part of CLF. What do you think their response to God's call to reset should be?
Well, and I think that's the $1 million question, right? So I think for all of us, we have to really consider what really does matter. And the fact that we're doing what we're doing right now that's kind of a novel new way. And so I think we've been innovative in some ways. We've pivoted and we've had to do things differently than we've done them before. And that may be the way we're going to, progress for a time. I mean, I think that being innovative and being, quick to adapt and to adopt new forms of communication is one thing. But I think for the church at large, it's really evaluating, what really matters in our lives. For so many people, this pandemic and this quarantine kind of stay-at-home atmosphere has really kind of simplified our lives. And I think a lot of things that we're vying for our time, now we have more margin in our time, and we're not so busy with this event and that event, and and I mean, we were, the reality was most people were like so busy, and yet they didn't really they didn't have time for the things that really life is meant to meant to be. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to say, hey, listen, when we start coming out of this and things start opening up, we really need to be mindful to guard what really is important in our lives. And I think one of the things that we've discovered that's really important is gathering together as the saints of God, that maybe our perspective was a little bit like, hey, we have a nonchalant attitude, or we were looking at our coming together as as a little contemptible, familiarity breeds contempt. Yeah. Now there seems to be this new, hey, listen, man, I really do value my brothers and sisters, and it is important that I have people in my life and that are going to encourage me to continue to walk on. So I think there's a reset of valuing what is important, and gathering together and having those relationships is important, but also resetting and recognizing that we may have allowed some real complexities into our life, that God's saying, listen, this gospel is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And walking with Jesus is really, it's not as complicated as we've made it out to be. It's really just saying, hey, listen, my whole life belongs to you. And so how we fellowship, the time we spend with God, being obedient to the Great Commission and also the Great Commandment. These things are very simple and pretty easy, yet it demands our all. And so that requires time that we now have to give. So.
Yeah. We've got a bit of time. I was looking at some stuff last week, and it was showing that we're watching 42% more TV and 42% more streaming shows, which, I think adds up to something like 8 hours a day, Yeah. I mean, so we've got the time. The time is there for a lot of people.
Now we have to reprioritize it, right?
Yeah. And so, we're in a series right now as a church, Jeff, called When Life Happens Again. And we're kind of talking through like, hey, so when we get past this, and this is kind of in the rear view, what's going to be different? And I love how you're talking about that. The kind of a core reset moment for us is going to be to refocus our lives on God's mission, right? God's call, and being together with the church. Do you have any, and this will probably be the last thing, because I know we're going a little long, but do you have any advice or encouragement that you'd share for as we get back into maybe what we used to call normal, right? As events pick up again, as season opens, as these things, how do we continue to guard what God has reset for us?
Yeah.
What do you think?
That's a great question, and it's something that I think we have to nurture and continue to evaluate as we begin to add things back into our schedule. And so I think we have to really identify what is it we want to look like when coming out of this. So like what you're saying is, when we look back, well, let's do a little vision casting, if you will. I hate to use that term in some ways, but what is it we want to look like coming out of this crisis? And I think we want to look leaner as the body of Christ. Now, I'm not talking about physically, but that may be a good thing too. In other words, we don't want to carry a bunch of stuff into the future. We want to get rid of that which is not essential, and really begin to say, okay, that really isn't that important. But this is. And what are the things that are important? Well, we know that in Acts chapter 2, it was the apostles' teaching. It was fellowship or breaking of bread. And I think that includes understanding the holy meal, the communion meal, and making that a part of our practice, reminding ourselves of what Jesus did for us. It was ministering to others. Okay. And they share with what they had with other people, and they ministered to their needs, both physically and spiritually. And then not lastly, but a part of that whole continuum was prayer and worship. that's what they did. So when we look at that, we go, okay, wait a minute. It's giving ourselves the apostles' teaching. It's prayer and worship. It's breaking of bread, remembering the fellowship that we have with one another, and ministering to the needs within the body and without the body. When we start just simplifying along those ways, then, man, whatever comes at us, ask that question. Does that fall within one of those 4 activities? And if it doesn't, then let's evaluate whether or not we should actually engage in it.
That's fantastic. And I was reading something not too long ago about Acts 2, right? When you have all of those people that are getting into the apostle teaching and the breaking of bread, and they're like committing to this, but a lot of them were not from Jerusalem necessarily, right? So they had traveled too, and then they stayed because God was doing something. And so their normal was completely changed, right?
A reset.
It was a reset, right? Absolutely, man. Jeff, that is so good. That is so good. Well, I'm going to let you go. We've got some people popping in here, and they're agreeing that that God is doing a reset. He's getting our attention and doing some good stuff. Pastor Jeff, thanks for your time. I love you. Appreciate you so much. Yeah.
God bless you guys. Love you. And of course, Godspeed to what you're doing there in Cape Coral and the rest of the world too. I know that you guys are involved in so many different things as well. So I love you. My love to David and Pastor David and Dina and the whole leadership team. God bless you guys. And Josh, you're looking so bright and cheery today too. Wow. Encouraging.
Is the orange. It just, bright.
Whoa, come on now. Come on. That's right. Get back to your Tennessee roots.
There it is. Go Vols. All right.
All right, buddy. God bless you.
Love you, Jeff. See you.